Coming up on the show, the 2014 budget rolls out. Is 2014 the year of implementation? And PNG's power problem. How long will businesses continue to suffer because of this?
PNG Power Management will not increase or apply the electricity tariff.
For over 40 years, Trukai has built a reputation as the leading rice supplier in Papua New Guinea. But nearly all its stock is brought in from Australia to be packaged in Papua New Guinea. Now Trukai is moving into a higher gear. It wants to build nucleus agricultural estates and increase rice production. In partnership with the National Agriculture Research Institute and the University of Technology, they're trialing 36 new varieties of rice. At the end of the trial, they'll know which rice varieties can grow in PNG's varied climatic conditions. We revisit this story with the head of our lay bureau, Scott Wide.
At a small experimental farm at the University of Technology in Lae, a team of agriculture researchers are working on 36 different varieties of rice. This is part of a series of experiments to determine which of the varieties are best suited to Papua New Guinea.
Part of this big network variety evaluation all working in Australia. I blame go some Asia too. So Unitec Mipla Agriculture Department, I'm a master of this looks away Trukai, Kamla Department, involved Mipla Isla. So this after the trial, this I'm on the ground where water come renda sol. Narbla trial, I'm start on the 10 mile of Bubia, station Lonari, or look irrigated fields, so rice grow on top of water. So same variety, I'm comparing to an irrigated field. So this land now, Bembla looks away, Bibla try finding out. One blood is 36 varieties, and good blood and test him. Environment of Papua New Guinea.
There are some promising varieties found based on their morphological characteristics and their growth.
The 36 rice types come from various parts of the world, Africa, Asia, and Australia. While rice may flourish in other parts of the world, studies have shown that Papua New Guinea's varied climate conditions and unpredictable weather make rice growing quite difficult.
Papua New Guinea got kind, some mountains, some flats, some swamps, some dry place, so people try to look. Now testing more varieties, people be finding the year. Lol kind up now. People try finding one blah or some blah. Lol varieties where we people try to give farmers.
Dr. Tom Okpul is one of the lead scientists in this study. Along with a team which includes 2 postgraduate students, they're working towards identifying the kinds of rice that will grow in the highlands, on the coast, and in flatland areas. One of the main challenges the team faces is finding a variety that is resistant to attacks by common rice pests that can kill off large hectares of plants.
And this is what happens a month or so down the line. It's a stembora.
The name is stembora.
Yeah. So it's a moth.
It's a moth.
The eggs are oviposited, like I showed you. You see, this is the point of oviposition here, where the eggs were oviposited, meaning they were pushed in. The larva develops.
And tests are slowly showing what rice type is suited to Papua New Guinea and the kind of pests that farmers will be up against.
So now I'm looking, I think so you would run looking kind of people always now, yeah. And one binatang was called brown plant opa, and I take him. So now I'm looking looks away. One of good we said can send a strong brown plant opa. We said can put down the time brown plant opa come. Or some rice or farmers best hours and we got 2 kind rice or 3 kind of Papua New Guinea. One blood of Pinsaben or Sawe also call them all Finns brown, Finns white, and one blood Narpla rice also call them all Javanica rice. Igat all Narpla, by looking most all Nari release all long grains, and all indica rice. Now you got all Narpla, sotpla, which you shall get Trukai rice. Packet, yeah, I'm got all this also call them all Japonica rice. Now I'm the Lulu all get this rice. So I want to ask him too, so people try to Lulu all get on. Awesome. Try to give more farmer Narpla choice again.
Trukai Industries has invested about $500,000 kina into research and development. The funding is also going towards the postgraduate scholarships.
Our efforts in the last several years have been around now, let's test the right varieties, let's see how we can optimise the yield rates on a per hectare basis. and help the farmers through training of a rice farming system to develop their own capabilities to grow rice.
At the University of Technology's greenhouse, the same varieties of rice are being grown in pots. At a certain stage in their growth, the plants will be starved of water to simulate drought conditions.
We want to improve a crop variety, a rice variety, which can be used by farmers so that during dry seasons, their rice crop can continue to grow. And in Papua New Guinea, especially in rice-growing areas, there is a lot of unreliability of rainfall, and sometimes rainfall can continue, and there are times when the dry season will continue even up to 6 months. The experiences from 1997 and 98 El Nino, we saw that farmers didn't have any choice of continuing cropping and planting of rice during the dry season. Because rice is an introduced crop, we've got to improve a variety that can grow all throughout the dry season.
This store of knowledge they're building will be of benefit to Trukai Industries and the many Papua New Guinean farmers who are growing rice. Over 30 years, rice has become a staple food in many households. But much of the rice is still being imported from Thailand and Australia. Trukai is now looking at building nucleus estates for rice to be grown. It's an ambitious plan that has been in the making for the last 18 years.
At the moment, we do not have exact number of farmers who can grow rice, but we have assessed from our preliminary visits to the province that there are a lot of interest with farmers who want to grow rice.
At Trukai's farm at Gambatsum, about 100 hectares of rice is being harvested. This is the first step towards increasing Trukai's seed stock and the availability of seeds to farmers.
What we are doing is multiplying this, and we will take these seeds and then take it up to our main farm with Sabet Arab, and we are already doing some work to develop about 100 hectares plus. So we can multiply these seeds and then distribute it out to a lot of the farmers in the country.
The project has been partly successful. While much of the crop has survived, some have been destroyed by pests. With increased focus on agriculture by the government and new growth in Ley City, the investments made now are expected to yield big rewards if Trukai Industries uses its 40 years of experience and knowledge to expand its business.
You're watching Business PNG. Don't forget to like our Facebook page. More when we come back. Welcome back to the program. Maintaining sustainable growth in the economy has been the O'Neill Dion government's main obligation. And now, with the biggest ever budget in the history of the country, the government is also tasked with the mammoth task of implementation. Some even commented that 2014 truly is the year of implementation. But with that in mind, how far has the country progressed in 2014 in terms of implementation? Executive Director of the National Research Institute, Paul Barker, last year stated when budget was being handed down that although 2013 was being described by Prime Minister O'Neill as the year of implementation, it was inevitably going to be the year of preparation for implementation. On the other hand, 2013 was also the year that saw most funds being directed out to provincial and rural areas where majority of the country's population live. Now, as the country enters the new year with a massive budget, implementation still remains an unanswered question. Recapping the 2014 budget, a central theme of the budget is the government's ongoing commitment to growing the country's future by making key investments focused on inclusive and sustainable growth for all. The 2014 budget is a historical one. It is PNG's biggest budget ever to date, totaling a massive 15 billion kina. Economic growth, however, has been revised upwards for 2014 and is projected to stand at 6.2%. While inflation has been revised upwards from last year, forecast is at 6.5%. Also, as you might have heard, the 2014 budget is a deficit one, a total deficit of 2.5 billion kina. However, the budget is expected to return to surplus from 2018. Some of the key allocations include infrastructure spending, with a total funding of 2.7 billion kina, of which 1.6 billion kina will go to the construction and the maintenance of key infrastructure. 1.5 billion kina for education funding, depicting the government's commitment to education and the government's 605 million kina free education policy. And lastly, health, with a total funding of 1.4 billion kina, with about 666 million kina alone being directed towards the Department of Health. With major funding allocations to deliver, the Department of Treasury as well as the Department of Finance went straight to business this month. Treasury Minister Don Pollier has announced that 20 billion kina worth of warrants have been released to all departments and provinces. The warrants were approved as early as December last year, with some of the funding expected to have been released last week.
I want to show to the people of Papua New Guinea that work is going ahead. We must do work. We must do real constructive work in Papua New Guinea. Work that really matters. Work that really touches the lives of our people. And therefore, this early, I've started encouraging governors and local level government levels, presidents and their government to present the budgets to Treasury as early as last year, towards the end of last year. And some they did, I think 2 came around before the Christmas.
On the finance front, Minister James Marape was pleased on how business was conducted in his department. The Finance Department for the first time was able to close 2013 accounts and open 2014 accounts in record time.
We have never overspent last year. We spent within budget. And let me take this time as Finance Minister to announce that we maintain a little bit of surplus in a deficit year, as well as for the first time ever, our Alaska payroll cleansing project has produced results where we have not overspent in as far as payroll is concerned.
Treasurer Pollier, on the other hand, expressed his disappointment in the fact that about 70% of provinces and 90% of LLGs are still yet to submit their detailed 2014 budgets for approval.
So I like to see Papua New Guinea continue to work ahead, to work and to achieve benefits for our people. The issues there that can be addressed by the authorities, the systems of government, the bodies that have been charged to do their job. And when we are called to go and answer to those, we will do them at the right time.
However, 2 provincial governments were amongst the first to write the 2014 budget rollout this month. Treasurer Don Pollier approved the 180 million kina provincial budget for the Sundown Provincial Government and the 300 million kina budget for the autonomous region of Bougainville.
We are giving prominence to governance administration. We are looking at community development services and welfare for the people of Pacific.
This year, we are going to have a legislation on the Finance Management Act and also on the Public Service Management Act.
Today, some progress in terms of the government's funding allocations and its implementations have already taken off the ground. One in particular is the free education policy. With a total funding of 1.5 billion kina going into the education sector, about 605 million kina will be going directly to the government's free education policy. This, the Department of Education has reported, has resulted in an increase in enrollments in 2014. However, questions have been raised regarding the capacity of the country's education system and whether or not it will be able to cater for the increased enrollments.
And we must train more teachers. We must make sure this curriculum is always there. We must make sure the curriculum continues to be reviewed so it's on par, so that it meets the requirement the government asks us to review, like what I explained earlier, from OBE to making sure that we address the standards that are in place.
Apart from education, infrastructure developments have also taken off. 2 weeks ago, 4 contracts totaling up to 227 million kina were signed for lay roads, and just last week, an 89 million kina contract was signed between the state and Dekanai Construction for upgrades and the sealing of a 57-kilometer road that connects Balalawa in the Gulf Province and Epo in the Central Province.
Gulf Province is a very important province this time in Papua New Guinea is because of the two additional LNG projects that are coming on stream later this year. That's very, very important for the country in terms of economic development and the country moving forward.
This upgrade and sealing project will be funded by both the World Bank and the state, where the World Bank has agreed to fund 78% of the project. The World Bank has already made available 500 million kina for infrastructure spending this year. Now, with the record budget being passed in Parliament last year and a pathway of development and growth clearly defined, the government is now placed with the huge challenge of implementation, timely implementation. Not just the need to get things done, but the need to get things done on time.
I'm very, very happy that the cabinet is very, very proactive. This is really, really the year of implementation, and a lot of things will happen because we're trying to streamline a lot of these processes.
Don't go away. When we come back, Papua New Guinea's power problem. Welcome back. You're watching Business PNG. The country continues to be hindered by intermittent power cuts and unreliable power supply. It appears that PNG's aging infrastructure simply cannot keep up with the ever-growing economy. Now, with the boom in business activity in the country, as well as the government's aim to growing the economy further, having a constant and reliable power supply is crucial. However, the reality is businesses continue to suffer because of the unreliable power supply. Today, having backup generators is a must, and cost of fuel is quite an expense most businesses have to bear. Some business operators in PNG are already taking matters into their own hands in response to the intermittent power blackouts. One in particular is PNG Biomass, a joint venture between Oil Search and Aligned Energy in Morobe Province. As featured in the last episode of Business PNG, the company has begun work in developing a 35-megawatt biomass power generation facility.
The aim is actually trying to supply about 450,000 tons of green biomass to a 30-megawatt power plant. And the power plant will be set up here in the Arab area, and it will supply into the Arab substation. And in order to do that, we need to meet that requirement. We need to grow or find out where trees will grow best and trees will grow faster.
Gas is another source of energy that is being considered to supply electricity, given the PNG LNG project is expected to go into its production phase this year. There is possibility of using gas, thermal and other sources of energy to complement or replace the existing hydro and diesel energy sources in meeting the high demand for electricity into the future. Alternative sources of energy are considered because the demand for electricity by businesses and households is increasing. PNG's total power demand is expected to triple from 500 megawatts to 1,500 megawatts in 10 years. Minister for Public Enterprises and State Investment Ben Micah highlighted recently the proposed Purari River Hydro project, saying the government is committed to execute the project, which is expected to produce a huge amount of electricity.
This is the project that I believe will transform Papua New Guinea, and that is the Purari Hydropower Project. So the government has now come up with definite steps now to get the Purari project going. This is a project that we want to target as the provider of cheap, reliable, and long-term sustainable power.
PNG Power's limited capacity and aging infrastructure are not able to meet the increasing demand at this time, resulting in regular power blackouts causing unease among consumers. For example, the retail business sector faces challenges of sustaining power every time there is a blackout. Backup generators and fuel are extra burden for retail businesses in the country. They need power to freeze goods such as meat. Refrigerators and other equipment in retail outlets are easily damaged during power cuts. There is high voltage at first when the power is on, and then suddenly it is cut off as a result of blackouts, thus damaging equipment. The damaged equipment are repaired or replaced, forcing businesses to cover the costs each time. Chief Executive Officer for the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and Industry, David Conn, commented on the effects of intermittent power cuts.
It's the disruption that's caused. I mean, there's a disruption. You in many businesses, if they don't have sufficient backup power, they close down. There's a cost. They shut down. There's people not able to work. There's production schedules put out of kilter. People got contracts to supply to a certain time and demand. They can't do that. That's not good for their business. I think the issue of quality of power cuts to a lot of our businesses, and it cuts them deeply.
The government's commitment of 10 million kina to upgrade PNG's aging infrastructure has prevented the proposed increase in tariffs announced by the Independent Consumer and Competition Commission earlier this month. Minister for Public Enterprises and State Investment Ben Micah stopped the increase in tariffs from being implemented. PNG Power CEO John Tangit has made this clear to the public.
As of the 11th of January, the Minister for Public Enterprise, Honorable Ben Micah, has directed PNG Power not to increase electricity tariffs as approved by ICCC during the first quarter of 2014. And government hereby, in consultation with PNG Power management and the board, will not increase or apply the electricity tariff for the first quarter. And the savings will be passed on to the hands of our customers who are Papua New Guineans.
Also, Mr. Tangit has denied any claims that there will be a 40% pay increase for PNG Power executives.
What the unions misunderstood is the fact that we are preparing for a performance management system within the company. There's nothing like 40% pay hike for PPL chiefs. There's nothing whatsoever.
Apart from considering alternative energy sources to meet the rising demand for electricity, competition is seen as another possible solution. However, though some companies have indicated to provide competition for the electricity industry, there really is no competition at the moment. There are some that are doing their foundation work, such as PNG Biomass.
International experience, I think, has shown that competition has not been quite such an important factor in the power industry as it is in some other areas. I mean, you sometimes find they sort of introduce competition in distribution so that people are buying off the same producer, and then the actual retail distributor of or retail supplier of the electricity might be different. But that may be useful to some extent, but it's not like airlines where there are multiple airlines competing with each other, or telecommunications where there's multiple telecommunications operators. Power tends to be different.
PNG Power has been calling for independent power producers to enter the generation space for electricity. The intermittent power supply from PNG Power is providing business opportunities for Papua New Guineans as well as foreigners.
This is all about national development, getting everyone going, getting everyone a fair share, and people holding these projects, some of these rural electrification projects to ransom, I think need to be brought to heel. and brought under control. That frees, that just expands the market and comes back to our issue of competition. So, someone might want to step in and say, look, we'll get involved in providing the power for Alatau or for Kimbe or for Madang, but the investor needs to know there's going to be no nonsense, that the government's firmly behind them and will make sure that their investment is protected.
How long will the power cuts disrupt business operations and force extra costs? When will there be reliable electricity for Papua New Guineans? As business activity booms in the country and as the government invests in some of these businesses, one can only hope that this will be at PNG's advantage, particularly in the improvement of electricity supply. And that's all we have for you tonight. Make sure to visit our webpage. Also, don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Until next week, have a pleasant evening. I'm Danny Sorore and this is Business PNG.